talked last week about Taylor Jenkins. He got fired by the Memphis Grizzlies. Grizz in that playoff spot, very bizarre. But now it gets even more crazy. Yesterday, the Denver Nuggets fired their best head coach ever, Michael Malone, as a 4 seed in the West, just days before the playoffs. GM Calvin Booth gone as well. Lead assistant David Adelman takes over in Denver. So John Malone got them a championship a couple years ago. We're just 10 days from the first round of the playoffs. What are the Denver Nuggets thinking here?
I can't figure it out. I think Steve Kerr said it best. These billion-dollar companies and these owners who run these multi-billion-dollar companies, it's not family owned anymore, family operated. It's a business. So that's kind of how the NBA is being treated now, right? If they're not happy with what's going on, especially the executive Tim Connolly, who they paid, a lot of money to come over there and make moves. Um, I guess you have to move on. And I don't know what happened. You hear these reports, but hey, look, maybe it was just time for sides to move on and go their separate ways. Maybe the message wasn't being sent. Um, but Malone, Jenkins, like these are two guys that are going to land on their feet. So I'm not necessarily worried about that in a sense, but it's a scary proposition. I mean, Joe Mazzulla said, "I just wake up and I'm thankful for the day. This could be my last day," right? Because it just gives him gratitude and also, makes him work hard. So that's just the nature of the beast. Um, Buzz Williams in college, he has this philosophy. He studied like all these coaches stayed over 6, 7 years. He's like, the higher the expectations are, no matter what happens, people forget where that team came from. And so Denver won the championship. They're expected to be a top 4 seed. They're expected to win games, and they weren't doing that. And sometimes organizations get spoiled, right? The grass is not always greener either. And so it'll be interesting to see where they go. Obviously, I think Jokic is going to have a big part in it, as he should. And I think the Nuggets will be fine, but it's just tough, man. Like, what more do you want, right? 10 years, fourth longest tenure, 8 winning seasons, got a championship. So you just never know the dynamics. I mean, who knows? He could have been beefing with the front office this whole last few years, and they finally said, "All right, well, we're going to cut ties."
Yeah, it's bizarre, and we don't know what
Mhm.
happens behind the scenes with these organizations. The timing for both of these just very peculiar with me, so there must be some stuff going on behind the scenes. And I want to talk about Jokic in a second here because he has some decisions to make. But let's look at the playoffs. I mentioned Jokic. They have the best player in the league. They are this team, this Denver Nuggets team, playoff tested. But in your opinion, does this immediately make them, sort of a fade in the first round of the NBA playoffs? Or are you looking to maybe bet this team in that first round?
I would probably wait to see how they look. I mean, that you're naturally going to get that extra boost. Um, with changes. That's just kind of how it works, man. Everybody excited. And if from what the reports say, defense was the issue, you would think they would come out today against the Kings and try to show that, hey, you know, it's not the coach, it was us. They're gonna play hard. Um, so it's a tricky situation for the Nuggets, but you'd imagine that the morale is down and you know, if my team was a playoff contender, former championship, and they fired my coach right before, there's a little bit of turmoil, a little bit of distraction. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. But Tyronn Lue did take over for the Cavs midseason and won, so there is precedence for that as well.
Yeah, that's a good point with Tlu and the Cavs. It will be interesting to see how this Nuggets team responds, whether they rally around as a unit or if they just sort of bury their head in their hands and it's just sort of a what are we even doing kind of vibe. But leader of this team is Jokic. He has 2 more years left in his contract and then a player option for a third. Do you think that maybe this could be the beginning of the end for Jokic's time in Denver?
Yeah, you could argue and say Conley's going to give it another year or so, and then maybe blow this thing up, right? Maybe try to regroup, right? Has his group run his window kind of run out, right? Like kind of similar to the Bucks, like are gonna have to retool and reload and try this thing again. Um, but I'm sure the Nuggets are super worried about losing one of the best players ever, right? So it'll be interesting the decisions that they have to make. There is some decisions to make, um, as far as contracts and do you keep fighting? Do you go one more year and see what happens? Because obviously you could literally retool your whole franchise by trading Jokic, with a year left on his deal and a player option. Team would probably trade for him and then extend him. So that's probably what it's looking like if the Denver Nuggets don't get it together.
And I mean, on that contract front, not only did Malone get fired, but Calvin Booth, the GM, fired as well. Do you think the Jamal Murray contract played into that factor? Because that one is starting to look really, really bad, maybe with Jamal Murray. We know the pedigree there. He's had some big playoff performances, but man, oh man, that's a lot of money to play for a dude that, plays for 16 wins or whatever in the finals.
Yeah, I mean, at the time, I think you had to pay him, right? You got to keep your core together. You have no choice, right? You let him walk, you lose essentially an integral part of it. I mean, he hit some big shots down the stretch for that championship.
Yeah.
I mean, think about that. Uh, but I think we're also spoiled, right? By the Chris Pauls, the Jimmy Butlers, the Steph Currys, the LeBron James. These guys are 36 plus, 37 plus, 38 years old, playing at a high level. So we're kind of skewed to what a successful career like Jamal Murray's 28, turning 29, or he just turned 28. So he's approaching age 30. So like, yeah, he may be in a lull, but he has a lot of time left. And not everyone is just going to keep improving into their mid 30s. That's just not how it works. I was done at 31, right? And I felt like I played a pretty long career, but I was banged up, right? So um I think he'll be fine. Sometimes you got to stick with guys because, after the ACL injury, it does take time, guys time, and all it takes is one good year and he's right back in the conversation, or one good playoff series. So, you know, I think we're spoiled by the older guys that are playing so well, but that's just an anomaly, right? Age 28, second deal. I think he got extended as well, maybe. So this is kind of the life of an NBA player. You reach your 30s, and it could go either way.